It's not enough for us to say, oh, now there's access, to financial services. If people don't feel confident, if they don't feel capable, they either engage and get their fingers burnt. Some of them will even go ahead and begin to borrow irresponsibly. Some fall victims of fraud, right? And then they lose trust in the formal financial system.
There's a difference between fintech banking and commercial banking. A fintech banking is like a fast banking. It's very fast and reliable. It's very fast. Something can do something like that, you can receive immediately. But for normal banking, sometimes they might send the money, it might not receive it. The network is very bad. Maybe during the rainy season, sometimes it's actually bad.
It has its advantages, but my experience with them is that their charges are very high. Their interest rates are very high. Yeah, for disciplined people who are into business, they can manage and achieve their goals. But for those who cannot manage that, they run into problems, and some of the actions taken by these financial organizations against some of those private, all these entrepreneurs, and it may not be palatable. But in the long run, for those who are disciplined, I think it will help businesses if you have access to capital.
The rapid growth, the way at which it's growing, coming into the limelight is quite, impressive. The easy transfers here and there, the fast movements, and all of it. It's really commendable. Unlike when someone wants to use the normal traditional commercial banks, you have glitches here and there. But before someone says ABC, the person uses OPay, Money Point, and I don't know why it's like that. But I think, if they can actually work more on it, on the financial institution, I think they'll go a long way.
Using the online banking has been very, very seamless for me, like very, very easy. It has make the transaction and with the online banking now you can even pay bills, NEPA bills. You can buy water, anything at all you can just think of. It's really a great innovation.
There was something that happened to me recently. I went out and I ran out of cash. And a particular bank that was trying to send money to the POS did not go at that moment. I had to call my sister to help me use the random one that we know now, to send money to the person. So if that online banking if the fintech bank was not available, I would have been embarrassed then, because I had to collect money from the POS person to pay the bike man. So if it was not there, I would have probably been embarrassed. In fact, I'm sure the person would have called me a scammer. So that really saved my life. Let me just say my life that day, and I was very, very happy that this really helped me a lot.
I have a good level of trust on the fintech. Yes, for disciplined individuals. Yes, when you run into a crisis and you have a good record, they are responsive, and at least, and if you're able to pay back, then no problem. You're in their good book.
Before you even lay a complaint, I don't know how they detect it. It's just like automatically bounce back. But the physical one that I go to, physical traditional banking, you go there physically, you lay a complaint, and sometimes they don't even respond. I'm not saying all, but the ones at least that I've used. And it got to a point that I had to even leave them for a while. I don't have stress, since I can be going to my meeting physically and you still don't respond to me.
If anybody is not using online banking now, I don't know for that person. The person is still way back.
Thank you for joining us on the program. I am Gabriel Jude. Nigeria has witnessed a remarkable growth in digital payment and financial technology over the past decade, yet millions of people remain outside the formal financial system. While digital banking, mobile money, and agency banking are transforming how many Nigerians save, spend, and transfer money. And so access and financial literacy remains significantly a challenge, particularly in the rural areas. And today I'm being joined by a financial inclusion specialist and the CEO EFINA, the person of Ms Foyinsolami Akinjayeju. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabriel.
All right, let's begin rapidly. For many households, financial inclusion is often a major issue, looking at it in the perspective of just someone having an account to save money. But I want us to look at it in a broader perspective. What does this mean for Nigerian household, especially for an ordinary family?
That's a very important question, Gabriel, and I think that's a good place to start. We talk about financial inclusion all the time. I'm sure people start to wonder, what is this buzzword? What is financial inclusion? And so because you asked it in the context of family and relevant to or relative to transactional accounts, owning an account is the first step. But financial inclusion itself is having access, and I will say effective use of a broad range of financial services. So we're talking about, savings that, people are familiar with, credit, insurance, pension, investments. So being able to, for example, if a family can receive their income, for example, digitally, if they're able to save for emergencies such that in a rainy day, they can have access, to money to address those issues. If they're able to receive payments, they're able to make payments digitally. If they're able to have access to insurance, to protect themselves in the case of shocks, if they're able to recover from shocks, if they're able to access credit when they need it affordably, that really is what we're talking about from a financial inclusion lens. So basically, it's not just about having access, but how does this access translate to effective use? And how does the use translate to improving your lives, your livelihoods? That really is the promise of financial inclusion.
Now, Nigeria has become one of the Africa's leading country in terms of the fintech market. And so we have daily transaction, digital payments every day. It's just like just from the VoxPopuli, you heard people testifying about the fintech. But yet research suggests that millions of Nigerians remain financially excluded, okay? Particularly in rural areas. When you check your EFINA report 2023 report, you see that there are a lot of gaps that need to be dealt with. So what are these gaps? Could you address some of these issues despite the rapid technology? What are some of these issues and how can we deal with it?
We should not, first of all, discount the progress Nigeria has made. We talk about the gaps and they do exist. But between 2020, which was the penultimate survey we had, and 2023, we saw at least a 6% growth, 6 percentage points growth in financial inclusion. In 2020, financial inclusion was about 68%. As of 2023, it had increased to 74%, meaning we saw financial exclusion go down from 32% to 26%. And so this is financial inclusion as a whole. But if you dimension that into formal and informal, because some people are still getting their services from the informal markets. For formal financial inclusion only, we move from 57% to 64% in 3 years. So we're seeing growth. We should not discount that. But to your point about the fact that there are still millions of Nigerians that are excluded, very important point. And I can think of 5 major reasons, and there are more. Because technology is one thing, but technology doesn't solve all problems. So because you have, for example, a telephone, does not mean that you have continuous access to data, or that you can even afford it, that you can afford data. So affordability is a major issue. And we saw from our A12, we call it the A12, the Access to Financial Services in Nigeria survey, the one from 2023, at least about 50% of those who were excluded are citing low or irregular income as a major reason. And so that speaks to affordability. You cannot afford, data. You cannot transact regularly. So affordability is an issue.
So does that mean that Nigeria as a country is focusing more on, has focused, because we've seen a lot of development when it comes to technology, especially in places, you see Lagos, you see other places, but does that mean that really focus on technology and then leaving data driven and inclusion?
So to your point, Gabriel, technology is great, but technology cannot. So because technology is available, it's not a silver bullet. It doesn't solve all problems. As I've mentioned, affordability is an issue. So because you have technology or you have access to it, does not even mean that you can afford to use digital financial services. Another thing that comes to mind is product relevance. You see that a lot of progress has been made, a lot of improvements, but we still see that fundamentally services or products are designed for salaried urban elites. What about the rural farmers in the north? What about petty traders in the south? Sometimes those products, those solutions do not meet their needs. Another fundamental issue is trust, and the confidence or the capability to transact digitally. You see that people will tell you, and their concerns are valid. I'm concerned about losing my money. I'm concerned about fraud or even hidden charges. So because of that, people don't even want to engage at all. Or maybe they found someone who did and had some nasty experience. So they swear off, digital financial services. That's another thing. And then we can't rule out infrastructure gaps because indeed we can see technology is great. And I think as of the latest, data that I'm privy to, we have about 180 million mobile phone subscriptions. But what about connectivity across the country? So connectivity issues or connectivity is uneven. So we can't say because there's technology. I talked about, affordability, the trust issues, right? Also relevance and as well the infrastructure gaps. Those are some of the issues that we need to address before technology can enable us, realize the full promise of financial inclusion.
Don't you think that technology is leaving financial inclusion behind? We have AI now. Maybe
AI is a branch of technology. AI is not excluded from technology.
Yes, right.
So, and to the point that you're making, part of the ways we can leverage AI, for example, is also for product relevance. So, for example, when people tell you, or trust or safety, that I really don't know I don't feel capable to be able to transact digitally. But, there are, say, voice prompts in natural languages that they understand. So maybe someone speaks Yoruba or Ibibio and they can hear maybe a voice prompt in their language saying, this is how to do it, this is what to do. That can also help us, leapfrog the remaining issues.
So several studies have highlighted financial literacy as one of the strongest predicators. When we have we talked about that severally, and that has been the advocacy for the long run. Now, so how significant is the challenges of financial awareness? And then I want to ask, where are the areas in Nigeria? Do you cover northern part of Nigeria in doing your research? Because a lot to be unpacked.
Right. So let me start with the latter part of the question. Our research, the Access to Financial Services in Nigeria survey is the most authoritative, most comprehensive national asset, national resource we have about the state of financial inclusion. So we're talking about the access, the use and quality of the broad range of financial services that I've talked about, and we cover the entire country such that it is nationally representative and also representative at state level. So we go to all 36 states and the FCT. And we don't just stay in, the places where you live, the urban areas. We go into the communities as well, such that we are getting real life scenarios, the lived realities of the people. And to your point, I mentioned the fact that we've made a lot of progress on financial inclusion, but there are still specific segments of our society that are furthest behind. So to your point, we have women, we have rural communities, northern populations, or even youth that are outside of the formal employment and nano, micro, and small, businesses. Those are the ones that are disproportionately excluded. And so part of the work we do is to cover all those different segments so that none is left behind. Because, we talked about technology and the other issues around affordability. If you remember, I talked about trust and safety. It's not enough for us to say, oh, now there's access, to financial services. If people don't feel confident, if they don't feel capable, they either engage and get their fingers burnt. Some of them will even go ahead and begin to borrow irresponsibly. Some fall victims of fraud, right? And then they lose trust in the formal financial system. We do not want people, coming in and slipping back or not engaging because of that. So it's important that we invest. And by this, I mean both, private sector, the regulators, policymakers, the financial services providers themselves, do all that is necessary. I'll say for the financial institutions, right? They need to protect consumer data. They need to invest in fraud prevention mechanisms. They need to, enhance their cybersecurity mechanisms as well. Because while fraud itself, as I hear, incidence of fraud is on the decline, but the impact when it does occur is on the rise. So meaning you can have fewer incidents, but when it does happen, the impact is severe. So the financial institutions have their own role to play. And also they need to simplify complaints and to enhance the speed of their redress so that people feel comfortable to say, if anything happens, I know that there is somewhere I can go and it will be addressed. But for the families, for individuals themselves, they need to protect their identity. They need to protect their sensitive information. So, what I find interesting is people still use their PINs and they will use their year of birth. Even I'm not a scammer, but I know if I know your year of birth, if it's a 4-digit PIN, I will try that first. Or they will use, if you're maybe 6th of May, they'll use 0605 or 0506. I mean, anyone can try that. So make sure you use strong passwords. Try use 2-factor authentication. Set transaction alerts so that if anything is happening, you can quickly find out. Maybe you're getting debit alerts, you can quickly, call to say, stop, any further debits on my account because it appears it has been compromised. You need to protect yourself. You also need to know your rights. You need to know, first of all, what are the charges applicable to the different transactions I'm trying to engage in. You need to know where to complain. You need to know, how to seek redress. Those are very important things that people need to know about. And then the regulator themselves, right? And the CBN is doing a fantastic job so far, but a lot more needs to be done, right? We need to enhance consumer protection frameworks, right? We need to ensure that the financial service providers are doing the right thing, to protect our consumers, because what we need is not just access. We need people who are financially capable, who feel financially safe, and then who are financially resilient.
As much as the household would look out for all of these things you said, to protect themselves and the kind of things they will release out there for what they do with fintech, but I've been following your Twitter handles for quite some time, and so you do advocacy. You talked about all of these things, and knowing your right and all of those things I've seen with graphics and all of that. But then, what are those things that have been put out there for households to look out for when you want to be included financially? In terms of looking at fintechs, banking, and all of those. Have you made such progress in letting the households know that look out for this? So look at, if you see any fintech account advertising with yellow, don't go for it. If you see,
I don't know any fintech that advertises
so
with yellow.
do you have such things?
Well,
is this something that can be done?
So EFINA, part of our mandate really is to ensure that to facilitate an environment where financial services are affordable, they're relevant, but also safe. Safety is a fundamental part of our mandate because, as I've said, you want people feeling capable and confident to engage formal financial services. And that can only happen, based on a currency of trust. So part of what we do is, in addition to the research that we do, is advocacy and awareness, enlightenment, literacy programs. In fact, we have a grassroots voices network, program where we go into communities. We're starting from the northern part of Nigeria, to engage, through, gatekeepers, traditional rulers, religious leaders, heads of households, and then, people within those communities, to teach them these fundamental things, the things I mentioned, that if you must engage, protect yourself. If you must engage with licensed, financial institutions, whether it be a bank, a fintech, a mobile money operator, make sure that they are licensed. In fact, we're working on a program where, in addition to, going to the CBN website, you can see the list of the licensed regulators, but also a platform where people can go into and find out, for example, if I'm going to engage, how do I compare prices or features or terms of different institutions before I make my decision, right? So we go into communities, we, preach this gospel of what needs to be done. And we also task the financial services providers to do the right thing while also engaging with the regulators to enhance, like I've talked about, the consumer protection standards. So our work is at the intersection of these different parties, the operators themselves, the consumers, like I've talked about. In fact, we're going to, rolling out a radio literacy program that will be pan-Nigeria in local languages, teaching people about digital literacy, financial literacy, fraud awareness, things of that nature that I've talked about. Such that, we don't just say these things, but we are putting our money where our mouth is, such that we can really get this information across, to the different families so they can protect themselves.
All right. So they say experience is the best teacher, some kind of saying as such. Do you have any experience as an expert in the field, financial inclusion expert? Do you have any scenario where an interface between the stakeholders, the consumers, issues that you think need to be dealt with? Someone listening to you could relate with it if peradventure the person have encountered and necessary measures to avert those things.
Yeah. Part of what we do is provide an avenue, a platform for the regulators, the operators, and the consumers to be in the same room. I can give you an example of a program where we call it Ask. We have this series, Ask the Regulator. We invite the regulator from CBN, for example, from FCCPC, relevant regulators.
I think I was there.
Yes, I believe we were there as well. And we also have operators, people who are, whether it's a financial service provider, insurance, firm, it could be a bank, a fintech. Then we have consumers, both on site and also online, such that you can hear directly from the consumer. And it's not just what, say, EFINA says or what other civil society organizations are saying. In fact, we are also consumers ourselves. So even if you hear from us, we're talking to you as consumers, but so that there is this platform for these engagements. And we've had such scenarios where difficult questions are posed, and they are answered because the regulators have been fantastic, but they also take this away to say, what else can we do to address it? In fact, I've had, situations where commitments are made there and then that this will be fixed in this way. So that is part of what we do, provide the platform for the different, sections, regulator, operators, and consumers to be in the same room to discuss and iron out issues, for improvements in our financial system.
As we wrap up, looking ahead, what would determine whether financial inclusion in Nigeria becomes a genuine tool for the poverty reduction and economic empowerment?
Right. It's important that financial inclusion focuses not only on access, but on active, effective use. So the question we should be asking is, are people using these financial services and are they improving their lives? Are they, transacting digitally? Are they able to access credit when they need it affordably? Are they able to recover from shocks because life always happens? Are they able to, for example, pay their bills when they need it? Are they able to raise emergency funds when they do? That is the true test of success when we're discussing financial inclusion. The second thing really is financial inclusion needs to be able to cover those who are, most left behind. As I've said, women, northern populations, rural communities, nano, micro, and small businesses, youth, until we are addressing financial inclusion for those segments. Even if we are seeing improvements in the headline numbers, if these particular segments are not witnessing, progress in the same vein, then we have not really addressed it. And then the final point that comes to mind will be that financial inclusion needs to be connected to the real sector. So meaning the farmer needs to be able to use financial services to invest in productivity. The MSMEs need to be able to use credit, for example, to expand their businesses. That really is the test of financial inclusion. So it's connected to the real sector. It is addressing those who are furthest behind and not just focusing on access, but on effective, continuous use that transforms lives. So that really is what we are about at EFINA, for us to see that people move not just from access alone, but to continuous use, and that we are seeing this translate into improved lives and livelihoods.
Before I let you go, for Mama who is selling pepper in the market, what will you tell her about financial inclusion, digital payments, and what future do you see with digital payment? It says CBN is advocating for that a lot, and I think it's something that you have a lot of investment in it.
And let me address Mama that's directly at home. Mama, so I know that Mama, you can be afraid to say, I don't want my money to get missing. But if you listen to the Vox Pop, you hear that you can make payments digitally. They are licensed, meaning those that the Central Bank of Nigeria are registered to do these services. Make sure you are getting your services from those people, not just from anybody that you see or hear. Make sure you are using licensed financial institutions. And when you transact digitally, when you make digital payments, there are records of how you have made payments. You can access those records. For example, when you want to borrow money from the bank or anywhere, they will see how you have been making payments. They can use that to assess whether or not you'll be able to pay back and what interest rates they should give to you. So there are benefits in engaging with digital financial services, but make sure you use licensed institutions and make sure you also know your rights. If anything happens, your money to a large extent is safe as long as you're using the licensed financial services providers. So you can get your money back and you'll be able to use it to grow your business. So don't run away from it. It helps, it works. Many people are using it and they're getting better for it.
Future for digital payment.
Future for digital payments.
Yes,
the future for digital payments, I'll say is massive, right? I think we're only scratching the surface because right now, yes, we do USSD, we do transfers, wallets, but I mean, we haven't really begun to do QR payments, NFC payments, and things of that nature. You talked about AI. In fact, I guess to some point you will just be passing through maybe the checkout counter and your payment is already made. So it would help for expanding businesses, even for what's it called, inclusive growth. If we're talking about inclusive growth, where everyone cannot just, they cannot just, benefit, but they can also participate in the formal economy. I think payments has a huge role to play in that. And if you're trying to scale beyond Nigeria, you definitely need to embrace digital payments because really, how else are you going to be able to expand the visibility of your business and be able to get your money, beyond where you live? So the future of digital payments is massive. Innovation will take us there. And I think that, I believe the regulators are doing the right thing, to ensure that there's protection, the adequate safeguards to make sure that we reduce fraud and the incidence of it.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for all of this insightful conversation. Indeed, it has been long coming.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And now to conclude, financial inclusion is ultimately about more than technology. It is about ensuring that every Nigerian, regardless of income, education, or location, has the knowledge, confidence, and opportunity to participate fully in the financial system. The challenge ahead is not simply expanding access, but ensuring that access translates into meaningful economic empowerment for households and communities across the country. That will be all for this edition of WebTV Focus program. For more updates on finance, the market, banking, and economy, follow our social media platforms and watch WebTV on YouTube. Thank you everyone for being in this conversation. I am Gabriel Jude. Bye for now.